Day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you had a good day so far. In our grade 6 English lesson on idioms and adages. And before we start, we're going to log on to a+students.ca. Once you've logged on to a+students.ca, as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. We do it. You see it's idioms. And then we're going to scroll down up until idioms and adages. All right, so when it comes to idioms and adages, we continue. We said our chapter is idioms and adages. Our subject is English language arts. We're doing grade 6. And the on under the chapter of idioms and adages is to determine the meaning of idioms from context. And we're also going to identify idioms and adages. So we're doing that in set 1. In our next lesson, we are going to continue with idioms and adages and do set 2. All right, so when it comes to idioms and adages, right? An idiom, we can say it's basically a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on its own. So an idiom, it is a phrase, something different than what the words in the phrase mean on its own, which means that you should not look at the actual wording in the phrase, because if you're going to look at the and then it means that give us a direct translation of the phrase. But an idiom, you basically have to, it means something different than what the phrase mean on its own, right? All right. If we look at an example of an idiom, right? So it's an example, it's the word or the phrase plus it is the meaning of that phrase, right? And then we can say that under the, let's say for example, you say that I'm not, I'm feeling under the weather, right? So the phrase under the weather, right? This is an idiom. And under the weather, it has got nothing to do with the fact that it is snowing today. It's got nothing to do with the fact that it is raining today or however the weather is, right? When somebody, for example, tells you, like, oh, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, right? Do not go outside, think of the season that we're in, right? Because it is nothing to do with the weather, because it's not about the weather. So when we look at the phrase under the weather means that someone isn't feeling well. So if I, for example, say that I'm not feeling a bit under the weather, and then it means that I'm not feeling too well, or I'm just not feeling well, right? And that is what it means. You are not feeling well. And if we look at an example, another example, right? Or how we can use that phrase within a sentence. And then it says, Sally stayed home because she's feeling under the weather, meaning that she did not go to school or she did not go with or wherever because she wasn't feeling well. So, like we say, under the weather has got nothing to do with the fact that someone is not feeling well. And when we look at the phrases, right, of the idioms, you cannot just look at the phrase of the idiom and directly translate it, because the meanings of idioms, it cannot be found by just looking at the meaning of each word, meaning that you cannot directly translate the meanings of the words. So which means that you're going to have to remember them, or you're going to have to try and figure out the meaning by looking at how the sentence is being used, or how the phrase is being used, or in which context the phrase is being used, right? So remember, when it comes to idioms, you cannot just look at the word and directly translate the word by word by saying, okay, this is what the meaning is or whatever, right? You need to specifically look at at the phrase and either see how or in which context the phrase is being used, try to figure out basically what the meaning is of that word or that phrase, or you're just going to have to try and remember the phrase, um, or let's say all of the idioms depending. All right. So now we're going to look at a few examples of idioms, right? So these are a few examples. Here we have three examples of what idioms are. Here we have the second one, and we have the third one. So, right, it says burn the candle at both ends. So burn the candle at both ends. That is a phrase. We can also say that is an idiom, right? So burn the candle at both ends. And if we were to find out what the meaning of that word is, So burn the candles at both ends. We can then say that it means when you do much and to overwork yourself. Usually they would say you are burning yourself out, right? So usually if you're doing too much and you're overworking yourself, then they would usually say that you're out. But now we also know that the phrase burn the candle at both ends means that you are doing too much and you're just overworking yourself. That is what burn the candle at both ends mean. So do you see it's got nothing to do with burning can nothing. It is with you overworking yourself or you giving way too much of yourself, right? And like we say, you then have a burn out. Next one, the silver screen. The silver screen. That is our next phrase or the next idiom, the silver screen, right? And the meaning of a phrase or that idiom is, and if you look at that specific phrase, right, the silver screen, then the silver screen, it's got nothing silver, right? And screen, you can have any form of screen. So at least if we, for example, say the silver screen, or we went to the silver screen, or we watch something on the silver screen, then it means that it is the movies. All right. And once again, you need to either remember the meaning of the word. For example, the silver screen means the movies. You're either going to have to remember the meaning of the, or you're going to have to see in which context it is being used within a sentence, right? And figure out how it's being used. All right, it's on the back burner. So, on the burner, that is our next idiom or phrase. On the back, it's like leaving something on the back burner. So, on, and if we were to use idiom on the back burner, then leaving something on hold or putting something on hold. That is what it means when it says on the back burner. It's like keeping something on hold. Right? So these are example idioms, and we said it is phrases or we can, it is basically phrases, right? And this phrases, it means something different than what the word in the phrase mean on its own. Do not look at the direct translation of the phrase. If you're going to look at the direct translation of the phrase, then it means that your meaning of the idiom is going to, you need to either look at how the context is being used within a sentence, or you're just going to have to remember or try and figure out what the meaning of that word is, or just remember it. All right, so now we're going to a+students.ca. We're going to look at a few examples of idioms, right? And keeping in mind that an idiom, it is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on its own. Once again, do not look at the direct translation of that phrase or idiom. If you're going to look at the direction of the idiom or the phrase, and then it means that it is going to be wrong, right? The It cannot be found by just looking at the meaning. So you're either gonna have to remember them or try and figure out the meaning of the word based on the context in which it is being used. All right, so now we're going to apens.ca, and we are going to determine the meaning of idioms, and we're also going to identify the meaning of idioms and adages. All right, so now once again, phrase it means something different than what the word in the phrase mean. And we said that the meaning of idioms cannot be found by looking at the meaning of each word. So you're just gonna have to remember them, figure out the meaning by looking at how they are. Look at a few examples of idioms, but it's gonna be within the sentence, right? So you can at least look at the context in which it's being used in order to try and figure out the meaning of the word, right? It says, what is the meaning of split hairs? What is the meaning of split hairs? All right, so if we need to say what is the meaning of split hairs, it says we agree on almost all of the plan. We agree on almost all of the plan. So why should we split hairs over this one detail? So we agree on almost all of the plan. So why should we split hairs over this one detail? So we need to say what is the meaning of split hairs. Meaning of the word split hairs. And it says we agree on why should we split hairs over this one detail. Then we can say it is to fight over time. It's like having group work, right? And you guys already came up with the concept, but now everybody first agreed on the um there are a few people who just don't agree with certain concepts, certain ideas, and certain things that you guys spoke about. What it means is to fight over tiny differences. No, it's fine. I'm gonna sit inside. I'm gonna sit inside. I'm gonna sit inside. The next one. What is the meaning of the soul? So sorry about that. What is the meaning of the silver screen? It says Heather admired the fashions of the silver screen. So Heather admired the fashion sense of classic actresses of the silver screen. The door. The context in which the sentence is written, then we can say the silver admired the fashion sense of the classic actress on the screen, like it's on the movies, right? So that is why I'm saying if you don't know the word, right, or the meaning of the phrase, then you can either look at the context in which it is written. This is like the context in which it is written, the sentence, or you're just gonna have to try and remember the meaning of the phrases. right. If we look at the next one, what is the meaning of a drop in? So drop in the bucket. Does it mean, okay, before we go on to what it means, it says compared with what we need to run the magazine, $20 in the bucket. Compared with what we need to run the magazine, this is a drop in the bucket. We need to say what is the meaning of drop in the bucket. Drop in the bucket. And if we were to look at the meaning of that word bucket, because look here, they're saying compared with what we need to run the magazine, $20 is a drop in the bucket, which means that it's like saying is way too small to even make a difference in what we need to run zine. Or it's basically the contract. That is basically what it means. Right? All right. So now we're going on to our test, right? Where we're going to do the meaning of idioms of rose-colored glasses. But I doubt there is rose-colored glasses, right? Meaning of rose-colored glasses. It says even when her problems are huge, Mia usually sees them through rose-colored glasses. So even when her problems are huge, Mia sees them through rose-colored glasses. And the meaning of the words or the phrases rose-colored glasses doesn't mean a cheerful point of view or something to think about seriously. A cheerful point of view or option two, something to think about seriously. Rose-colored glasses. So we need to say which option is correct. Rose-colored glasses. If we were to choose the meaning of rose colored glasses, they say even when her problems are huge, meaning even if you're going through the most, you still have or you still have a cheerful point of view, right? Yes, well done. So option is correct. The next one says, what is the meaning of below the belt? So we find out the meaning the meaning of belt. It says men felt was really below the belt but cried. Does it mean that felt Tom's teasing was on hold, or do we say it was unfair and overly? Which one is correct? Unfair and overly mean, option two, or on hold, option one. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, then yes, we would say out means unfair and overly mean. So unfair and overly mean. Well done. Option two is correct. All right, what is the meaning of a jump on the bandwagon? Meaning of jump on the bandwagon. Is it to join others in a car, meaning you're jumping in a car and you're joining everybody in a car? Or is it option two to do the popular thing? So it says Christopher usually doesn't follow trends. He jumped on the bandwagon and bought those sneakers. So Christopher usually follows no trends, but he jumped on the bandwagon and bought those sneakers. So is it to join in a car or to do the popular thing? Wagon. And if we say to jump on the bandwagon, then we can say it's option two, do the popular thing. You're doing what everybody. So well done. Option two is correct. All right, the next one says, what is the meaning of head over heels? One is head over heels of another person. From the day they first met, Mr. and Mrs. Hammond have been head over heels for each other. So from the day they first met, Mr. and Mrs. Hammond have been head over heels for each other. Head over heels. Does it mean very much in love, or does it mean standing up straight? Head over heels. Very much standing up straight. Head over heels. What is the meaning? And the meaning of, if we were to either option one, option two, standing up straight, then we can say it's option one. They are very much in love. Yes, so option one is correct. All right. We are going to identify the meaning of idioms and adages. And remember, we said an phrase that it means something different than what the word or the phrase mean on its own. So that is why I say translation of the phrase, right? Because if you're going to look at the direct translation of the words or the phrase, and then it's going to be wrong. It means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on its own. So if, like, in order for you to remember the idioms or the adages, it's basically to either it right or to remember the meaning of each of the words, or you can just look at the context in which the phrase is in, and then that can basically help you to figure out the meaning of the word, or basically how it's being used. All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to identify the meaning of idioms. So we now need to say, what is the meaning of don't count your chickens before they hatch? So don't count your chickens before they hatch. So don't count your chickens before they hatch. Does it mean option one, do not depend on something? I'm gonna go inside soon. I'll work inside. Don't depend on something that isn't for sure, or don't count on just one thing or person. So don't count your chickens before they hatch. Does mean option one, don't depend on something that isn't for sure. Option two, don't count on just one thing or person. Option. And if we were to choose the correct option, then yeah, we'll say don't count on one thing or person. Oh, don't depend on something that isn't for sure, because now that you should not just be counting specific things. Sorry, I chose the wrong. All right, so what is the meaning of keep your nose on the ground stone? So keep your nose on the ground stone. To work or to study hard, or people have different tastes. Keep your nose on the ground stone. Did you read? No, I'm going for it. What's the other one? Is it to work or study hard, or people have different taste? And if we were to choose the correct option, then it means that it is to work, study hard. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on idioms and adages. We said an idiom is a word that means something different than what the actual means. It is also free of this. And remember when we try to figure out the meaning of an idiom, and then you do not look at the direct translation of an idiom to figure out the meaning of the word by looking at the context it is written in, to know the meaning of the idioms. That is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for joining. Guys, there's no class tomorrow, and there's no class on the 1st, tomorrow and Wednesday. So you guys must have a good weekend further, day further, sorry, evening further. So till next time, goodbye.